Hi, everybody. This is Joe Maldonado and Heidi Bromm, and we are here on the coffee and tea segment of your crystal allies. And I'm very, very, very excited about this one because I have a lot of questions, and I always have a lot of questions, and that's what makes our question and answers very complete. So, for everybody that is on the call today, I would like to also offer 25% additional discount on the class that Heidi will be teaching. That is this Saturday. But in the interim, how does one begin to align with crystals? How do you know that's your thing, Heidi?
Oh, that's just something you know. You
So
just know it. It's like yeah, yes or no. It's you're not on the fence about that. You just know it.
you're drawn to is it
Yes.
certain crystals you're drawn to or the study of crystals? How does that work with you? How did it work?
Oh, well, I just like shiny things. So, luckily, lots of crystals are shiny things. So I was just drawn to the whole concept. Even as a small child, I like rocks, right? Gathering rocks out of streams and rivers and stuff.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah.
Awesome. I totally can resonate with that. I mean, for me, I think so. What happens like if people just keep giving you crystals? Like I wasn't drawn to it, but everybody that knew me would give me a crystal, and I'm like, what do I do with all these crystals? Then all of a sudden, somebody said to me, "Here's a crystal. I charged it, and it's enchanted." So, do you do anything special when you get a crystal to clear it, to give it its strength, its power? I mean, how does that work with you?
Well, when I get a new crystal, I clear it for sure. I put it on a selenite charging plate.
Ah,
It doesn't have to, that's what I do. There's different ways to do it, right? But
sure,
that's what I do.
right,
And it because it doesn't have to sit there for very long in that instance, because usually, I don't want to wait 24 hours to begin working with my new crystal. So
right, right,
selenite's really quick with that. And then so the crystal knows, obviously it knows what it's programmed to do.
okay,
What you have to ask it, or I believe, you've got to ask it to work with you
right.
and tell it what you're shooting for. So what your goal is with the crystal.
So, do you do that actually before you walk into a store with crystals? Do you like project and say, "My goal today is to find a crystal that will help me with abundance"? And then, are you drawn to it? Do you do it that way, or do you just walk in and say, "I don't know"? It's like whatever goes goes.
It depends either way, right? Sometimes I'm just not really, looking for anything specific and something will just catch my eye.
Right,
Or other times I know, oh, I want, a crystal to help me with a certain thing. And
right.
then I'll go on the hunt for that particular crystal.
Right, right. Now, I also have read, and I've done this. I don't know. I think different rituals and things that you do with crystals. Just there's so many of them. Just certain ones just are going to resonate with you as to what to do. I know with my crystals, as far as cleansing is concerned, I usually put them in a bowl of dried rice and then set them out full moon, and then pick them up again in the morning. I mean, is that something that you've heard of before? Or
Sure, you can cleanse your crystals in the moonlight. You can charge them in the sunlight, although not recommended for all crystals.
right. I was just going to ask you about sunlighting crystals. Now,
Yeah,
why is that? Why is it
it
not recommended?
well, there's at least two reasons that I know of. One, the crystal can fade,
Ah,
or two, the crystal can act like a magnifying glass and you can inadvertently catch something on fire.
oh, well, that's not good.
Yeah, because of the, it will, like, when you were a kid and you took a magnifying glass outside in the sun and tried to catch grass on fire,
Right.
it's the same thing.
Got it. Oh, wow, that's also good to know. I
Mhm.
did hear that, like you said, with not putting him out in the sunlight, I didn't hear about fading, so that totally makes sense. But I did hear about them, the sunlight being out in the sunlight would drain them of their power. I don't. I mean, I had a crystal in my pineapple garden for years, and all my pineapples grew great. And then I heard this thing about not leaving the crystal out, in the sunlight, and my pineapples started withering. I think I got like 3 pineapples out of, I think I had a dozen last year. So I'm just wondering they missed their crystal or not, or that crystal was fine. It just,
I have never heard that leaving crystals in the sunlight can be, for other than for the reasons I mentioned,
right.
Can be deleterious to the crystal. So
Awesome. Okay.
yeah.
Well, I think my plants actually liked it. I think they were just very compatible, the
Oh, for
ones
sure.
that I
Yeah.
had, and my plants loved it, and they thrived. So it's going back out again, I think. So which, in your opinion, which are the most popular crystals that are out there, and why? I know the answer.
You do know the answer? Well, let's see if I
Well,
get it right. I think quartz crystals, any variation of quartz crystals, right? And that includes rose quartz or citrine or amethyst or anything that has quartz in it,
yeah.
is going to be the most popular because, well, there's a lot of reasons. It's not expensive. It's
Right.
widely available.
Mm-hmm.
Quartz is the master healer.
Is that right?
And it's great. Yes. And it's great for beginners because quartz has several properties. It's super technical and sciencey, but quartz has many properties that make it easy for the physical body to work with. Let's put it that way. For your all your bodies to work with, not just your physical body.
Right. Okay. All right. Wow. So I never thought of it being as an easy, first step kind of crystal for newbies. But that totally makes sense. I know I see it everywhere. And I know in my readings, when I talk to my clients, and I usually have a crystal that resonates within that specific reading. But what I tell them, because some of them, for some reason won't be able to go to a metaphysical store, or, I order everything online, but I get that. But I also would suggest to them, and I'd like your opinion on this, if they cannot find the actual rose quartz crystal, I suggest just printing out a page or getting a page from the internet and, kind of uniting themselves with the crystal that way. Does that work?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, that answers that. Onward. Okay. So, how do you know if you walk into a store, you're going in there for the first time, and let's say you don't know anything about quartz crystals? How do you know which? Oh, I think I woke up Alexa inadvertently. Alexa off. Okay. So let's say you go into a store. How do you know? How do you resonate with a specific crystal? I mean, how do you feel something? How does that work for you, and how should it work? If you can give some tips to other people that are buying a crystal.
Okay, so if you're going into a store and maybe you've been there, maybe you haven't, doesn't matter, and you're looking for something specific, or maybe you're not, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not looking for anything specific, then my recommendation is always just go with your gut or go with your intuition or however that presents itself to you, right? You might not even know what your intuition is telling you. It's just pointing you in a certain direction. And so, yeah, that feels good. So you buy that crystal and you bring it home and you worry about the details later.
Okay.
And I've never seen that method fail. It always works, right? You get the crystal home and you're like, wow, this does exactly, what I was need.
I can't recall at this point. So I'm going to ask you again. What happens? We talked about this in some of your other classes, when you all of a sudden you can't find a crystal. And, I've heard you say that perhaps it's time that crystal found another home. Is that, how does that happen? I mean, if we lose a crystal, like if we're out in a restaurant somewhere and a crystal falls out of your purse or pocket or whatever, and you can't find that crystal, is that something to worry about? Is that something to put up, lost crystal on telephone poles in the city? Or, how does that work?
usually, if you're, if you're not in your home, lose a crystal, um, or it breaks or something along those lines,
Right.
it's done with you, right? It's
Okay.
can do.
Okay. So I think I lost the audio. Apparently the internet connection is unstable. So what were you saying? If a crystal cracks, that it's done with you? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I was saying if it broke or cracked or you lost it or something
Yeah.
along, lost it in the world somewhere, not in your own house,
Right.
then it's probably finished with you.
Right, right. I know with some of my crystals, I know that when it's time for them to move on, I could feel it. I'll have like
Hmm.
maybe 4 or 5 crystals laying out, and then all of a sudden I'll just feel like, well, this one's done. And then
Yeah.
I gift it to, if I'm intuitively drawn to a certain person, then I'll gift it to them, or I'll just put it out there that I love you, thank you for all your help, and now it's time to move on.
Yeah.
Let the right owner appear. Is there? I mean, the concept of a cracked crystal, I think, is very alarming for me. It's like crystals are not supposed to crack; they're not supposed to break. How does that happen? I mean, what happens with a crystal that, other than dropping it on cement? I mean, how does that happen, and why?
To be honest, I do not know how it happens. I have no
Okay.
idea. I just know that it does happen, and it's either it's finished. It's just
Finished.
finished. Its
Okay.
job is done. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, so there's a lot of different crystals, and I know on Saturday, we're going to kind of talk about who are, the more powerful crystals, um, and how to work with them. And I know you've also invited everybody that comes to the class to bring crystals with them.
Yes.
So what are we going to do with the crystals that we bring to class on Saturday?
Well, we're going to make a grid. Everybody's going to make a grid.
And what
So,
is a grid?
what is a grid? It's when you take more than one crystal, hopefully at least three,
Yeah.
and arrange them in a shape, um, in a pattern, in a shape, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
for a specific purpose with an intention.
Right. Right. And I mean, is there a way of doing that? I mean, is there a positioning, like this crystal goes here, or do you make a pattern, and then you put the crystals on top of the pattern? How does that work? And I know for those of you that did not attend, we have a whole class that Heidi did on sacred geometry, which was fascinating. I mean, it got me much more involved than I have been before. But if you could just answer that question, I mean, like, how do you lay them out? How do you know which crystal to put where?
Well, there are quote unquote recipes. You can look in certain well-known crystal books and find recipes for certain things, or you can do what I do and just do it intuitively. And you can put it on a pattern like, an image of sacred geometry or whatever you
Right.
like, really,
Right.
or not.
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
somebody just
So
commented, using grids is physical sacred geometry. So we like I said, we had a whole class in that. Can you briefly describe, for those that don't know, what is sacred geometry?
So sacred geometry, to my mind, is the nature of nature, right? It's the geometry that underlies everything,
Right.
making it by definition sacred. The patterns that are in everything, and then the symbols that come from these. We talked in the class about the 5 basic shapes in sacred geometry and how the patterns, like for instance, I'm thinking about Metatron's cube. That whole
Yes.
image
Yes.
comes from all the basics of sacred geometry. And so, that or the flower of life, are pretty common, I think, to put crystal grids on.
Wow. I know that I remember some of the images that you put up on the screen from that class. I was so amazed, and I never really paid that much attention to it, about the patterns in a flower. you know,
Mhm.
they're so, you know, closely resembling other, you know, other things in nature,
Right.
things that people, engineers have created and applied towards scientific modules, you know, space capsules, you know, and all. I mean, it's so fundamental, that it kind of blew my mind. I thought, wow, you know, like you see that, you know, I forget what it's called, you know, the picture of, the corn stalks and, you know, the space aliens, you know, making the symbols from up above, and then you look below and you go, oh, wow, look at
Oh,
that.
crop circles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you
Hmm.
look at those and then you go, wait a minute, my flower has that. You know, like
Hmm.
how bizarre is that? I mean, do you go that far when you look into sacred geometry? Do you, I mean, you, if I was you, I'd be walking around going, wow, Starbucks, wow, teacup, you know, wow, look at it. It's all, I mean, aren't you like just like amazed at how everything is really united?
You can, but yeah, you can spend all day
Just
long,
me.
every day could be an incomplete awe and wonderment, right? But
Yeah.
you don't get a lot done
Yeah,
otherwise.
yeah, yeah, I guess not. You walking around going, oh, this is so cool.
Exactly. Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about the class on Saturday that you'll be teaching?
Sure. So the class is this Saturday. We're going to be talking about, I believe some of the things I'm going to be covering are what are some powerful, excuse me,
Mhm.
powerful crystals. We're going to do, and we're going to do a couple of exercises actually. One of them is going to be assembling a grid. And another
Nice.
one is going to be to actually, well, I'm not going to tell you, but there's going to be another exercise. And
Okay.
then we're going to talk about, we're just going to talk about all, you know, basically all things crystals, but not at a basic level.
Yes.
So it's going to be, if you're into crystals, this would be a good class to take. Even if you don't know anything about crystals and you're thinking about taking the class, you should take
Mhm.
the class because A, you get 25% off if you sign up today. And B, you know, you'll get enough, you will pick up enough to get you moving in the right direction anyway.
Yeah.
So you don't
Yeah.
have to be an expert to take the class.
Yeah. Do you have any crystals yourself that you carry along with you like all the time?
I always, without exception, have at least one crystal on me somewhere. So it's either in a necklace pendant, or if I have pockets, it's in my pocket, or it's in bracelets or something. Somewhere tucked away somewhere, I always have a crystal. And I think right now I have one, two, I have six. I have six crystals on me right now.
You got a whole grid going on around you.
I
It's like,
do.
I got one
A
here,
gridded
got one here,
myself. Well,
earrings.
that's another thing you can do. You can grid yourself in, right? You can make a grid around yourself.
Interesting.
Hmm.
That's so fascinating. Yeah, this is definitely someone said it's going to be fun. It definitely is going to be fun,
Hmm.
on Saturday. But I just continue to be fascinated, with the power of crystals. Do you have any stories, that you can kind of share with someone, like something that you know your crystal, any crystal, specifically did, or did for you, you know, or a story that says, you know, that was definitely that crystal doing that. I mean, to me it was my pineapple story with that crystal, because you know, a few days after I took that, my pineapple started pooping, you know. So I know,
Oh,
I know
okay.
that crystal was very much in tune with them. But do you have anything that, you know, you could say, wow, I remember the day that I had that crystal. You know, I know, for example, I have another story while you're thinking.
Okay.
You know, remember the black crystal that you gave me?
Yeah, the Raven obsidian.
Okay, so I carry that in my purse all the time.
Hmm.
And it is one time when I switched purses, I didn't have it. And it was a day that just did not go well for me, you know, and I thought, wow, so this is like, you know, yeah, not like, it wasn't this one, but it was
No,
like
not that
that.
one. Yeah.
And I felt a lot more power. Like sometimes I could feel the strength and the power of them, usually because I have usually one, more than one with me. And yet if I leave it behind for some reason, and I don't even know that I've left it behind, but you know, when I think back of the day, you know, of what happened, and I thought, huh, I wonder if this has anything to do with it. So, I
Hmm.
mean, do you have anything like that that you like to?
I have, I know of a couple of instances where I want to say that crystals have taken a hit for me,
Yes.
right? If I've had a crystal on me or around me, they have protected me from negativity projected in my direction. So,
Interesting. And
mhm.
and do you have a specific instance of that? That I mean, any specific stories that, like,
Well, it's
oh,
happened a couple. No, it's happened. It's happened at least twice, and I don't tend to remember.
mm-hmm,
I just know the crystal.
mm-hmm,
It actually cracked both times.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Wow, wow, it cracked and it took the hit for you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's really amazing. Well,
Right.
I'd like to open up this section for questions for those that are on the call. So I'm going to stop recording and keep my fingers crossed that we have two recordings and not just one recording after today's hit that my computer took for us. So I'm going to sign off on this one and say, on behalf of Heidi Bromm and for, myself, thank you very much for listening to the recording. And we will stop the recording and open up the mic for everybody that's on the call.